Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. It's so good to see all of you. Either your picture, your name, your face. We're so happy to be here with you all. I was just typing this in the chat when the music was slowing down, but I'm so happy to see that we have folks from the East Coast to the West Coast, the Midwest, everywhere across the US. It's so exciting just to see that we have strong representation from giving circles that are here from all around. For those of you that this is your first session of the day or your first session of We Give Summit, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. My name is Amber Michelle Gonzales-Vargas. I am the daughter of Marco Gonzalez and Silvia Vargas, two immigrants from the beautiful country of Peru. Welcome them always into the space because even though they are not here today, they are the product of why I am here today. With that, I also want to share that I am part of the Latino Community Foundation. I'm the senior program manager there, where I manage our Latino Giving Circle network. We're the largest Latinx donor network in the country. And all that really means is that I get to work with amazing leaders from across California that are really trying to do some awesome, cool things to support Latinx-led nonprofits. Like many of you, our missions are driven by our hearts. And I cannot wait for you all to hear from our amazing panelists and hear a little bit more about what we're going to chat about today. Before I dive into that, I want to do one quick thing we've gotten into the practice of, especially doing these virtual sessions. I know that many of us, you might be jumping in just from previous session. Maybe you just finished a work meeting. Maybe you just grabbed your coffee or your lunch or something, and you're just joining us in this way. What I want to share with you all and invite you all to join me in is one quick body scan. It's not going to last long, I promise. If you feel more comfortable, you're also welcome to turn off your camera if that feels more comfortable for you. But I just want to make sure that we're all entering this space today. We're all present today. Melissa, Lauren, and I are really excited to talk with you all today, and we want to make sure that you all feel present in this space as well. So if you'll just join me really quickly in doing 3 quick breaths together. 1, 2, and 3. And if you're like me and you carry tension sometimes in your shoulders, take this opportunity to do one quick roll to the back and one quick roll to the front. If you're also like me, you sometimes squint when you're thinking really hard or you're trying to multitask. Release the tension between your eyebrows. Feel that relaxation in your face. We can do one more collective deep breath. All right. Well, welcome everyone. And welcome to our session around advocacy. Now, advocacy, policy advocacy, all of this can get really wonky really fast. And we're here to tell you that this is not what it's about. When I first got engaged with my own sort of, activation as an activist, a lot of things came up for me, a lot of stereotypes, a lot of assumptions around what this space was. And what I learned at the end of it is what it really means is being able to engage my full self, my full power, and speaking up for not just me, for my family and for my community. A quick aside that I have a very loud rooster. I am in San Francisco, which is quite interesting, but my neighbor has a rooster. We call him Richie, and you may hear him from time to time. So just a point of awareness for all of you, but please don't let that distract from our amazing conversation today. I'll quickly share that today, again, like I said, we have some amazing panelists, and really what we're here to talk with you about is about the organizations that we lead, and really ensuring that you all have a chance to hear about the different causes and organizations that these amazing giving circles are supporting. At the end of the day, one of the things I always say with my network is we can fund all the money and put all the money into these amazing places, but at the end of the day, if we are not investing in, supporting in, and really being advocates in helping put different people into positions of power or helping advocate for different things, really at the end of the day, all we're doing is putting band-aids on it. So we're here to encourage all of you, whether you're already into it or not, to either double down or to get started with it as well. It is possible to do it with your giving circles, and we are really excited to do that with you all today. And now I want to just quickly say and ask you all here in the group here, if you can quickly share with me in the chat, what is your experience with policy advocacy? Do you feel like, you know what, I'm basically a leader, like I got this, I've been working in it for a long time? Do you feel like you're very involved? Maybe not at all, or it's something that you're curious about? We'd love to hear sort of who is here in this space. I love that, Rachel. Yes, you live in DC. That's about it. That's all you had to say. That's right. Anybody else want to just quickly cut in? Curious about it? That's right. Well, thank you, Sarah Lubin. We're really happy to have you here. That's what we're here for, all the curious folks, the leaders. This is for everybody, whatever level of advocacy that you are here today to chat with you as well. All right. Thank you to those of you that are sharing all of that. Yes, your giving circles fun, 501c4s. Awesome, Ryan. Really excited to hear that you're curious as well. Maggie, that's awesome. Trying to bring giving circles to Latin America. That's very awesome. Like I said, my family's from Peru. I would love to see more giving circles out in South America and Latin America as well. Living it. I work with kid giving circles. Awesome. Please, folks, also, please let this be a reminder to engage in the chat. And also we invite all of you all to also have your cameras off. If you feel, our cameras on, if you feel comfortable with it. We'd love to see your faces. I think COVID has been such a challenging year for all of us, but the best thing for me personally is I get to connect with so many people across the country and around the world in a way that I haven't been able to before. So to kick us off, to kind of get us into this flow of this community space where we're all learning together as well, we're going to break off into some quick breakouts. You're going to be in groups of 3. Please don't be scared and please don't drop off. I know it's easy to do that when we go into breakout rooms. I've seen it happen. What I encourage all of you to do is to just take this chance, and you're just going to quickly share with your small group your name, the giving circle that you're a part of, or the giving circles you're trying to build. And also, we want to hear from you to just quickly share about your experience with policy advocacy, similar to how so many of the folks on this call have modeled in the chat. So please, our dear friend Isis Krause is going to break us into these small groups. You'll only be there for 4 minutes, and then the rest of it, you'll be hearing from Melissa and Lauren, who we will introduce when we come back into the space. And it's so nice to see so many familiar faces. Paula, Lori, I see you. Sara, I see you. Aisha, I see you. Very nice to see so many friends in our beautiful Giving Circle family. And yes, Richie, unfortunately, Richie cannot join you in a breakout room. Thank you, Isis. You're here, and folks are coming back in, or folks are joining us as well. Welcome back, Vina. Welcome back, Susan. Welcome back, Matt. Welcome back, Virginia. Welcome back, Valerie. Welcome back, Larry. Welcome back, Sandy. Welcome back, Virginia. Welcome back, all. Looks like we've got our folks back in the room. Fantastic. All right, let's see. Give me 1 second. We're gonna start going too short, Maggie. Yes, no, those are always really short. They're always, it goes by so fast. Please let this be a reminder that throughout We Give Summit, you all have the opportunity to connect with so many of each other. So I don't mind if during our presentation, you're like, you know what? If Valerie says, you know what, Amy seemed really cool, feel free to direct message Amy and be like, Amy, you seemed really cool. Please share your email with me so we can connect later. This is the best time to do it. When else do we have an opportunity such as this one to connect with each other? So please continue to do that and connect with one another, connect also with us. And now I can introduce the rest of us, and I'm really excited. First off, I'm gonna let Melissa introduce herself the organization that she's with, her pronouns, and also one thing. Melissa, please share a little bit about what you love about working giving circles before we dive into the meat of everything.
Absolutely. Thanks, Amber. It's nice to be here. I'm Melissa Walker. My pronouns are she and her. I am in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm the director of Giving Circles for Future Now Fund. We're an organization that focuses on changing the balance of power in state legislatures. I'm also in a home where children are at home. So sorry for any background noise. No rooster, though, in my home. What I really love about working with Future Now Fund's political giving circles is a certain moment. And it's the moment when people realize how much power they truly have when they walk with their communities. I have seen this moment when a light bulb goes off, where it's one person who thinks like, what can I do about what's happening in our country? And they feel like they can do nothing. But then they take one co-leader's hand, and that person takes another person's hand, and that person takes another person's hand. And I've watched that happen, and I've watched how much power they walk with when they walk together. The moment of that realization is the thing that I love most about giving circles.
Fantastic. Thank you, Melissa. And up next, we have the fabulous Lauren Johnson with SVP. Lauren, your spotlight again. Yay. We'd love to have you share again also about you, your organization, and one thing you love about working with giving circles.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Amber. I'm delighted to be here. Lauren Johnson, Executive Director of Social Venture Partners Portland, pronouns she, her. And SVP Portland is part of a global network. There are 43 affiliates around the world. We practice venture philanthropy. And so that means we are a community of professionals that give collectively not only financial resources, but also our human, so our time and skills and expertise, our human and our social power. So thinking about how we, our social capital, thinking about how we leverage our power and our privilege for influence. And in Portland, we have two primary strategies, which is one, we focus on building the capacity of nonprofit organizations, collaboratives, initiatives, all of which are focused on ensuring equitable access to preschool. And then we also do systems change work. And I'll get more into the history a bit later. But one thing that I love about working with giving circles is the amazing, dedicated change makers, passionate about collaborating across sectors, and who recognize that we can achieve so much greater impact together by leveraging all of our strengths and assets than we can alone.
I love that, Lauren. And I echo what both Melissa and Lauren said. I think those of you that either lead giving circles or are part of giving circles or are doing both, I think that's really the beauty of it. You know, one of the things we kept saying in my network was like, at the end of the day, you know, we're doing all this awesome stuff. People come for people, whether it's the people in their giving circle or the people that they are serving. There really is a special testament to the power of coming together and giving back. So we're going to just go ahead and get started. When we were preparing for this panel, you know, one of the biggest things that we were talking about is really supporting all of you in this, in the demystification of really what goes on around this. And I think both Lauren and Melissa, and I'll include some of my own learnings as well from the network, but we'll be able to guide you through their organization's own history and work to help you get a better idea of what it is that they do and how it is that they do it. And that hopefully inspires you to do it as well. So Lauren, it would be great to start off with you. You already started touching on it a little bit more, but can you tell us a little bit about sort of your journey to this policy and advocacy and how the giving circles that you work with use this to really advance your core mission?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'll start not from SVP's beginning, but I'll start from 10 years ago, or SVP Portland, I should specify. We wouldn't touch policy advocacy with a 10-foot pole. I mean, we were like explicitly not doing policy advocacy. And we were primarily focused on partnering with as I mentioned previously, but only individual nonprofit organizations, really to strengthen their infrastructure. So doing a lot of strategic planning and marketing communications and IT and helping in real estate and leadership development, board governance, all of the components of, running a strong, high performing nonprofit. So those were the sort of partnerships that we developed in the community. And the catalyst for us is we were going through a strategic planning process, and we were looking at community level outcomes, community level data, and seeing that outcomes in our community were getting worse and disparities were growing. And so we made a shift as an organization from working broadly in anything related to children, youth, and families. So we'd have a different issue area every year for our prior 12 years, to actually setting a focused goal. And we said, the recognition was we were failing broadly, one success at a time. So we decided to shift and focus all of our resources towards the goal that I mentioned earlier, which is ensuring equitable access to quality and culturally relevant early learning experiences for our kids locally. And in this process, we recognized that we couldn't only invest in individual nonprofit organizations, that individual nonprofit organizations work within a greater ecosystem. And so we needed to think about this system within which they operated. And often I'll use the example of, if you have a whale that's super healthy swimming in a toxic, polluted ocean, you've got a problem. So we're thinking about this kind of somewhat toxic environment that that many nonprofits are operating in, and recognize that we couldn't not do systems change work. So simultaneously, as we kind of shifted to learn more about early childhood and kind of this intractable problem in our community, we actually dug into disparities on kindergarten readiness. And try to understand which children is our system failing. And it became clear very quickly that the population characteristics, our system was failing children of color, children in poverty, and children whose primary language at home was not English. And so this was really an instigator for our diversity, equity, inclusion journey, and evolution to being more focused on social and racial justice. And as part of this, we recognized that we couldn't only think about our human and our financial capital, but we also needed to think about our social capital, the power and privilege that we have both individually and collectively if we wanted to see different outcomes in our community. So fast forward, there's a long story that I will not get into today just because due to time constraints, but SVP as a community of philanthropists, community of change makers, has played the role of catalyst, convener, and capacity builder for our county's universal preschool effort. And as a community, working in partnership across sectors, we achieved a major milestone this last fall, which was securing long-term public funding through a ballot initiative. And SVP, an SVP that I think couldn't have been foreseen or imagined 10 years ago before we said, we're going all in and doing absolutely everything that we can to help move the needle towards our community level goal, meant that we engaged our volunteers in playing fundraising roles for the ballot initiative, raising awareness within their networks, helping with phone banking, distribution of lawn signs, calling elected officials, hosting house parties with their personal and professional networks to influence giving and voting. So it really, it's remarkable to me, kind of I don't know if it's a short period of time, but within a decade, we went from saying we don't do policy advocacy to rising to the moment and saying we can't not do. And this wasn't big A, like policy, but we rose to the moment and really went all in to advocate for a vision that was co-created by community, that actually centered the voices of families and providers historically marginalized to help secure this win for our community. So I can pause there, or Amber, do you want me to share a specific example, kind of a story of transformative change?
You know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, Lauren. Thank you so much. And I just want to quickly say two things. One, I put this in the chat. The whale example is my favorite because I said this during our check-in as well. I think it's just a very good visual representation of kind of the work that we do. And two, for me, it's really exciting to see journey that that the organization has made. I feel like similar to us at the Latino Giving Circle Network, it's with the Latino Community Foundation as a whole, we've been on our own journey as well. And I love hearing yours because I think oftentimes, especially with organizations that are 501c3, which we are at LCF, it can be a little bit challenging sometimes to think of, because oftentimes people think so much of their status and they think that they can't advocate. And so I think it's a really great example as well. See limits and also the potential, and what we can actually do. Lauren, please do share a transformative journey of a donor or somebody that you've seen.
Yeah. Well, I want to share another kind of an example as part of our evolution of broadening from only investing in community-based organizations to investing in a collaborative. And this is a collaborative of initially 5 culturally specific community-based organizations that organically came together, recognizing the enormous disparities in flow of resources towards culturally specific programs and organizations. In Oregon, and we had a very narrowly defined box, so kind of a one size fit all of which programs were kind of deserving of public resources, which were quote best practice, and it really precluded access to dollars, to funding, public funding from culturally specific organizations that were doing just incredible work, but it looked a little bit different. And so the group came together to try and increase investment in culturally specific early childhood practices, and really even more broadly or boldly to actually shift the public narrative to make equity a priority in Oregon's early education system. And so SVP was kind of a neutral convener that kind of responded to this opportunity to play a role as capacity builder for these 5 organizations and the work of the Equity Collaborative, but also fiscal sponsor, fiscal coordinator. So we were out advocating for resources and support and growing awareness of the work, and really prioritizing. I mean, it was their voices that needed to be heard. They are closest to community, closest to the problems, and also the solutions. And so it really has been a privilege for SVP to partner so closely and be even invited to this table to listen and learn from leaders and leaders of color as they're shaping their policy advocacy platform. And it was a little over a year ago, they were successful in securing $20 million for the next biennium to support culturally specific practices in Oregon. So it was a really significant win for our kids and our families and organizations, and definitely growing or kind of incrementally working towards shifting the public narrative.
I love that. Thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you for that story and for sharing more. Go ahead.
I want to say one other thing. I forgot that I want to be really, I guess, explicit in naming. I think so often philanthropy is perceived to be one directional in terms of we're giving resources to community. And in SVP's case, right, we're not just giving financial, but also, the human and social capital. But I'd say in our work and kind of the depth, the proximity we have to community-based organizations and the depth of partnerships, because we invest for multiple years and work so closely, really walk alongside organizations and collaboratives and initiatives. Our engaged volunteers, our partners, I'd say, are equally transformed in how they see problems, in understanding root causes and understanding kind of the severity and kind of ubiquity of systemic racism in our communities, and has fundamentally shifted how they show up in their giving. So I think calling out that mutuality in terms of the learning and impact when we have the opportunity to work so closely with, across sectors, it's really remarkable.
That's
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. And now, Melissa, please tell us more about Future Now Fund, the work that you're leading, the work that you're seeing on the ground, and how it's transforming a bunch of different things. And tell the folks.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Love hearing from Lauren. I think that's really inspiring. I come to this from an unusual place. I am a children's book author. I write young adult novels and middle grade novels, and I had never heard about giving circles or been involved in one until December of 2016 when I started one and didn't know what it was called, but it turned out it was a giving circle. So in December of 2016, I went to a publishing holiday party and heard a then New York State Senator speak. And he said a bunch of things about what we might be able to do in the face of what was happening politically in our country. And the thing that he said that turned my head was, if you and your friends can get $100,000 together, you can shift the balance of power in a state chamber. And I was like, what? So I started looking into that, and I started looking into what state legislatures were. And I will say up front, our giving circles at Future Now Fund are explicitly political. But we are a nonpartisan organization, but we're trying to shift power in state capitals to elect lawmakers who want to improve people's lives. So we have a values-based framework for that. And the thing that happened when I started looking into state legislatures was I started to understand how everything that I was worried about and everything that I cared about were things that were controlled in state capitals, from environmental policy to education funding to healthcare to choice to gun safety laws to voting rights, those types of things. And I started to connect the dots between policies that were affecting our entire country and drawing them back down to state capitals, things like the bathroom bill passing in Raleigh, things like stand your ground gun laws passing in Tallahassee and then passing in a bunch of other states, things like the Flint, Michigan water crisis, which happened, all of those things actually happened under President Obama's watch, but all of them had to do with what was happening in state capitals. So Flint, that water crisis is a Lansing problem. So connecting the dots on those things and then understanding how state legislatures are really meant to be laboratories for democracy, meant to be marriage equality going from state to federal, meant to be healthcare going from Hawaii to Massachusetts to becoming the ACA. I started seeing these power centers in a brand new way, and I started seeing how groups of people organizing for them could really shift something. Because what I saw in at the end of 2016, well, for a while actually, but that's when I started seeing it, was people who felt helpless and like something had happened to them politically. And what I learned through building this Giving Circles program was that these individuals, we as individuals are not helpless and not hopeless when we band together. So Future Now Fund started in the summer of 2017. I have paused my writing work to help run this Giving Circles program. I formed the first Future Now Fund Giving Circle, and we now have 129 Giving Circles. And we work to change the balance of power in state legislatures. And that power center really became something where state capitals are making laws that affect all the kitchen table issues that I talked about. They also happen to draw the lines that decide who goes to Washington, D.C., and they also happen to make the voting laws that decide who can vote and when and how for everything, even up to the president. So I know some people are here from DC. We care about DC too, but understanding that we're focused on those 50 stars on the map. And the way that this connects with advocacy is, I think, clear in some ways, but once you elect people who are focused on improving lives, you actually change the laws around the things that you care about. Once you shift power, you can create new majorities in these states that will be those laboratories for democracy for stuff that I think we want, as opposed to voter suppression bills and things like that. So Future Now has a C4 policy arm in addition to the Giving Circles program, which is a PAC, where our policy team works with lawmakers in states, red, blue, and purple states, to introduce and pass laws that improve people's lives. And often giving circles will start because they care about an issue. So let's say it's gun safety. And when they start learning about it and kind of draw down and understand that that power right now rests in state capitals and has a lot to do with laws state by state by state, they understand that the way to affect like foundational systemic change at the root is to change laws. So how do you change laws? By electing people who share your values. And the story and the connection of policy issues often leads folks into this work, which yes, is overtly political, but is very values-based and not necessarily partisan. So that's what Future Now Fund does. And I'm happy to talk about some transformational change, a transformational change story, Amber, if that makes sense.
Let's do it. Yes,
Okay.
please do it.
Great, absolutely. So in 2018, which was the first year we had Giving Circles besides mine active, I worked with 2 Giving Circles. It was just me, so I was juggling 28 Giving Circles at that point. Now I have a team, so I can't have more. Yeah, it was really exciting to build. So we had 28 Giving Circles in 2018, and 2 of them, we do a 99 state chamber analysis, 99 because, as everyone knows, Nebraska is unicameral. Just kidding, no one knows that unless they're from Nebraska. Don't worry if you didn't know that. 99 chamber analysis and figure out where we think we could change the balance of power. Maine was one of our target states in 2018. We're trying to help shift power in the state Senate. And we ended up having 2 Giving Circles who chose Maine as their focus state, and they together raised $175,000. That made them the 2nd largest donor to come into Maine to try to change power in Augusta. That is because very few resources and very few organizations are focused on state legislatures. So it's good news and bad news, but it did make them a very powerful source for Maine's shift. We did manage to change the balance of power in Maine in November of 2018. One of our candidates, Ned Claxton, was elected by 235 votes. And when power shifted in Augusta, we watched in 2019 as Maine passed automatic voter registration, expanded Medicaid, put in paid sick leave and paid family leave for workers, raised teacher pay, lowered the cost of prescription drugs, and did a whole host of other things. And our 2 main Giving Circles felt so connected to those policy outcomes, and they were. These were 2 Giving Circles who were organizing in New York City for the people of Maine. And we ended up having an event because the Maine representative asked if they could come meet the people who had been organizing in New York. And it was one of the most moving things I've ever seen, because we hosted it in a small soda fountain in Brooklyn, which one of the Giving Circle leaders runs. And she printed out the policy changes that had happened in Maine. She printed out the names of the bills and hung them around the soda fountain. And the Senate President, Troy Jackson, came to meet and speak with this group. And when we walked in, he grabbed my arm because he saw this decoration. And I said, "Oh, President Jackson, are you okay?" And he said, "I'm overwhelmed," because state legislatures operate in darkness. And most of the time, people don't know who their state representatives are. And the work that Troy Jackson had been laying for 12 years to try to pass these policies, which he couldn't do until he got the majority, had been helped along by these people in Brooklyn. And walking in to see them celebrating some of his legislative wins was really moving for him. And he ended up just giving an incredible speech and talking about holding the hand of the only openly gay state senator in Maine while they passed a ban on conversion therapy on the floor in Augusta. So it was a beautiful moment, and it was a moment of our country seeing Mainers seeing New Yorkers organizing for shared values. And I think that's what Giving Circles do. They organize for shared values. And when we put things into that framework, advocacy, yes, is political, but it doesn't have to be partisan. It's about moving people towards good policies that improve lives and helping get people in power who can do that work, because foundational change happens when laws change. So that's what we work on at Future Now Fund with our Giving Circles. And it's honestly been the most inspirational thing that I've ever done. Thanks for having me here today.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lauren and Melissa. Both of the stories are amazing. I get goosebumps just hearing about it. I think oftentimes, and I'll speak for myself on this, but working with my network, I love and I get so inspired by my Giving Circle members that I work with. I'm just like, oh, you're so amazing and your passion and your values. And then I hear these stories and I'm like, there's more people across the country that are also doing this. So it really is exciting to hear these stories. Folks, time has been flying by. So we only have about 10 minutes left in our session, and I want to make sure that we're answering all of your questions that we have that you might be having. I know we had several folks that were curious on our call today, or folks that are more leaders. Please let us know if you have any questions in the chat, or if you would like, feel free to raise your hand, your virtual hand, or if you're off camera, you can also raise your hand, and I'm happy to call on you. But we do have one in the chat. So for Lauren and Melissa, would love to hear from you all. Question that we got: how do you define advocacy? It seems like different folks can come about it with different definitions. We'd love to hear from you what you think. Melissa, do you want to go first?
Sure, absolutely. And I don't, this is interesting. I guess, okay, so I can't get this wrong because it's my own definition, but what I would say is advocacy is working towards vocalizing, standing up for, and organizing towards something that you believe in. So it doesn't, to me, it's a word that implies some sustaining organizing and power behind it. Like, I believe in this is one thing, that's step one. And then, and here's what I am working on to move that along, to change that, to push it forward. So for me, advocacy is saying I believe in something and then working towards it in a concentrated and organized manner.
Love it. Thank you, Melissa. Lauren, what about you?
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. That's a great definition. My honest answer is that we don't have a shared, a formal definition of what policy and advocacy means at SVP. And I think we're, it's as I've talked about, really the question of how do we leverage our social capital, right? It's recognizing we have influence and voice and network connections. And so the question is, how do we capitalize on all of these resources in ways that really complement the work the community is already doing, further amplifies their voices in ways that drive progress towards our goal of equitable access to early learning.
Love that. Thank you, Lauren. We have another question from Maggie in the chat. How would you pitch this collective giving circle model to someone who doesn't see themselves as a philanthropist or as a donor? And that's a great question, Maggie, because I think oftentimes we're working with folks who are like, and I think philanthropist can also be a wonky word. What do you think, ladies? And anybody can go first.
Yeah, I think that is such an excellent question. And honestly, it's something that we're wrestling with at SVP right now, as we're trying to grow the diversity of SVP in a number of ways. And that's skill and it's sector and it's whether or not they identify with being a philanthropist, and it's race, ethnicity. And we know that we can do so much more together when we reflect the diversity of our community. And that, I don't know if anyone was on the presentation yesterday about high net worth donors of color, but one of the research findings was that many don't consider themselves philanthropists. And even though they're incredibly generous and philanthropic in kind of the definition of philanthropy is love of mankind, love of humankind, right? So it's pretty broad. And much broader than just dollars. So that's, given SVP is I would say our greatest asset is not our financial capital. Our grants are relatively small. Our greatest assets really are the time and expertise of our investor partners. And then also, along the lines of what we've been talking about today, our social capital that I think is still unrealized. We're just kind of venturing into, how we best utilize that for greater impact in the community. So I think this broadening of definition and also, beyond financial dollars, but also thinking about, I mean, often I don't use the word philanthropist, and I actually a lot less than I did 10 years ago when I was joined SVP. Don't use the word venture philanthropy. I try and make our language more accessible, that we're really a community of change makers. And I love the way Melissa describes it in terms of around shared values, shared goals for impact, shared like a mutual goal for learning and building community. So those are just some of the shifts that we're starting to make at SVP. And I think we still have a ways to go there. So I'm excited to learn from others in terms of how you're approaching that.
I love that, Lauren. I'll just add, you just actually hit on my two buzzwords that we use a lot at Future Now Fund, which are, we think of our giving circles as a real community building program and a learning program. So those two things are incredibly important in the journey, especially as you may have noticed, not that many people know that much about state legislatures. So in the work that we do, there's a huge piece that involves people coming together and learning. And I remember at some point, one of our giving circles decided they're called Civics Night, and they hit their fundraising goal. So each giving circle sets a fundraising goal. They hit their fundraising goal, and they said, now we're moving into our learning circle phase. We're in our giving circle phase. Now all the people who want to do this work have joined us, and now we get to learn together. We get to learn about the state we're supporting. We get to learn about the candidates. We get to learn how campaigns work. We get to learn what can happen when you elect a new majority. We get to learn about policy. And those pieces, I think, are very attractive to people who may not think of themselves as donors, but who want to join a community and who want to, be with other people who are sharing their values and learning together and talking. And that, to me, is a huge piece of it. So that's kind of how we talk about it.
I love that, Melissa. And I'll just quickly add on as well, that actually, the majority of folks that I work with are Latinx donors of color. And so for me, really what we've been really honing in on, and ISIS actually called it out in the chat, is we're reclaiming the word philanthropy. A lot of the folks that I work with do not ever consider themselves philanthropists, even though they've been in a giving circle for almost 10 years. And so what we really try and focus in on is that, at the end of the day, when we think about the Latinx community in particular, and I think about my family, we've given back in remittances to the church in times of need. We pool our money together for family members that need to make a payment and need to do something. And so at the core of our values as people and our families, we are philanthropists. We're just not considered it. We haven't considered it for ourselves in the way that other folks have. And so really a big piece of it for us is reclaiming philanthropy. I know we have just a quick couple minutes left. Would love for you two to quickly answer the question that Isis popped into the chat, because I do think it's relevant for folks that are here that are curious about it. For new giving circles, how could they embed advocacy efforts right from the start? Sort of embedding it into their giving circles as they're just starting out. And then Melissa, I want to call out a quick question also from Lori in the chat. Maybe you can respond to her directly in the chat as well. But answer that first one. Maybe Lauren, you can go first as well. For new giving circles, how do you think folks can embed advocacy efforts right from the start?
Yeah, I think that's an outstanding question, and I love it. The audacity, we need to be focusing on systems change, and a lot of what's come up in themes today. So I would say SVP obviously did not. It took us really 17, 18 years to even start to engage in policy advocacy work. However, there now are SVP affiliates around the world. Our partners in Connecticut, our partners in Los Angeles have started much earlier, but with systems change work, showing up saying we're here to do policy advocacy. So it has been done, and they said, we don't want to tinker around the edges. We don't want to make incremental change. We really want to address root causes, and that entails doing policy advocacy work. So I think there are examples of ways that it can be done from the beginning. I think it's a much bigger conversation. So I'm glad to hear that you're thinking about that.
Yeah, and I'll just say that I think our giving circles, because they are political giving circles, kind of have it embedded from the start. But I would also say that, we have we have giving circles that work that don't focus on their own states. You know, we have New York giving circles that are focused on North Carolina or Texas or Pennsylvania. And part of that is, you know, this is our country and it's all connected. And as we talked about earlier, that laboratories for democracy idea, but also we do have some guidelines for folks who might want to do some advocacy in their own, with their own representatives, because I think organizing yourself as a political giving circle and learning about how much is controlled in state legislatures and how much can be done actually leads into people wanting to engage with their own representatives more, which is just creates a healthier political ecosystem for everyone all around. I mean, I always say I would love it if each of our giving circles members just went home and talked about state legislatures and state representatives at their dinner tables, because people, you know, that is one way to move forward on this and to have people see state and local representatives as the foundations of our democracy, and to understand that, like, if we're all focused on Washington, D.C., we're shining a chimney while the core of the house is shaking a little bit. So I think that when people start engaging in their own lives and advocacy with their own representatives, that's a real win for our giving circle members.
I love it. Thank you too. So special thanks, virtual round of applause for you, and I'll quickly clap for both of you. Thank you so much for participating today, Melissa and Lauren. Thank you to the audience that joined us today. Folks, if you're still on, please fill out that survey. It really helps support We Give Summit team, the Philanthropy Together team, to ensure that we have all that information. Please don't forget to connect with us and connect with each other. The next session that's up is the Funding the Frontlines event on how giving circles can show up for grassroots nonprofits. One of the organizations that we actually fund is there. So I am super biased and really, really encourage you all to go to that one as well. So again, please fill out the survey. Please go and check out the next session, and don't forget to please feel free to connect with us as well. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you're leaving as inspired as I am by the information that Melissa and Lauren shared with us on this call. And if you're starting new giving circles, don't forget, don't be shy. Try and infuse a little bit of advocacy in there as well. Thank you, everyone.